Good morning, everyone. We're coming to you a little bit earlier than usual, and that is because our guest today is down in Australia. We are talking to Jon Summers, that you probably know him as INFERTILITYman on Instagram. He has built an incredible community where he's been really honest and funny about his experience of infertility and becoming a father through assisted fertility treatments. And he's done a really incredible job of centering men in the conversation, which is something that we obviously try to do here at Exseed. But I think Jon was really, I guess he was a bit of a pioneer in that space in terms of being the man, putting a face to a fertility journey and being really honest about his experience. So I'm going to add Jon in now. We're going to talk about his story, but then we're also going to talk about his mission to really keep centering men in that conversation and his book that he's got coming out as well. So I'll just wait for him to join. Hi, very exciting. Hi, Jon.
Hi there. How are you, Coni?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, fabulous. It's the end of the day here, so we're just winding down.
I know. Thank you so much. I'm really glad we managed to find a time. It's always fun and games when you're trying to go over a few different time zones. So I really appreciate you taking a bit of time out your evening to chat with us.
It's our pleasure. My pleasure.
I mean, I'm sure you just heard my sort of mini introduction to you. And I guess, I'm sure a lot of people already know your story, but I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, it's even interesting that you managed to get the Instagram handle INFERTILITYman, because it's so hard to get Instagram handles these days. And I was like, God, there was no one out there going, I'm an infertility man.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's where my Laura comes into play.
I know, and you guys are such a team, and really in this together. But I do just think, wow, he managed to get that handle because there were no other men doing this. I think you were really kind of one of the first, and I'm sure we'll talk about how I think over the last year, 2 years, it's changed slightly. We've got more great guys coming forward, but I feel like you were really one of the first to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think there were a few around, and I think the biggest thing is that there's a lot of really good intent out there, but we weren't really making there wasn't much punch behind it all, and I guess it's been great to see that we're gaining a little bit of traction. That people are talking about infertility, and especially that we're talking about the man's part in infertility, whether it's their fault or no. I regret whether it's their issue or they're part of the issue or they're not, and they need to play their part for the partner. So yeah,
100%. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I've been a huge fan of yours. Sounds like a weird thing to say, but in the fertility space, I really loved what you've done and have followed your journey. And obviously you're a father now, which is just incredible. So congratulations. I know you've got your little one. But I kind of thought I really want to take it right back, even before, you were thinking, you met Laura and you wanted to start a family, because obviously, so you had testicular cancer, and the treatment is, as I understand, that's what sort of led to your infertility. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I was one of the lucky ones. So when I say lucky in the fact that having testicular cancer actually brought me to this point, like I met Laura, all these sorts of things happen. So if you want to see the positive, then at the end of the day, I've ended up where I could have only dreamed of. So at the end of the day, my testicular cancer, it was a surprise for one. But I was very lucky in the fact that the type of cancer I had an amazing oncologist. I had an amazing team, the urologist, the oncologist. And actually through my whole process, they didn't even mention cancer once. Through the whole thing, he goes, oh, we'll get that out. That looks a little nasty. We'll get that out. What are you doing Monday? So then I end up on the operating theatre. And then I go back and see him. And he tells me, you have to go and see my mate. And I went, all right, who's your mate? And he told me where the hospital was. And then so when I leave, I look on the phone and I went, oncologist, right. So he actually held off doing the chemotherapy. So they were waiting for the results. And it basically came back to the fact the type that I had would have needed 6 months of chemo.
Right.
But he wanted he asked me whether I was okay with holding off, because he goes, I think we got it. He said, there's a spot on your lung, but I want to keep an eye on it. But so what are you meant to do? You've got this highly trained doctor,
yeah,
giving you this advice, and then you've got this treatment, which, as I understand and as I've seen on road, it's there's zero fun to be had during that process. So
really rough.
Yeah, rough indeed. So from my point of view, I had my surgery, and then it was a 5-year waiting game, and of tests and scans and tests and scans, and they sort of pushed out, and then at about 5 years, a bit over 5 years, met the doctor again, and he goes, Jon, I think we're good. So God willing, we're
all good.
We're good, and this will keep going. So yeah.
But so you said you had an amazing medical team, and it sounds like they really met you where you were at, and were really supportive.
Yes.
But was fertility mentioned at all in that process? And when did you find out that you were infertile?
No, I think. Well, see, this is the funny thing. I didn't actually find out, because at that stage in my life, I wasn't even thinking about that. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about it. I've gone, right, let's deal with this cancer, and it wasn't mentioned to me either. Okay. To put some sperm away, or even have a look, which would have been bloody useless anyway, as we know now, because I wouldn't have been able to put any away. But in saying that, I made the assumption that the doctor told me I was infertile. No, I couldn't have kids.
That was before the cancer.
That was when I met with the doctor after about the cancer, and I've reasoned with that now, that I'm pretty sure he said you're going to have to look at other ways to get pregnant.
Right.
Whereas at that time in my life, I could tie a little bow in it and go, I can't have kids. Great, I'm going to take everyone else's kids and I'll give them back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's how I dealt with my grief, my anger, my pain, my guilt. I was just, geez, I felt it all, man. I would like to think they go, hey Johnny, you got cancer. And I go, yeah, great. Let's just knock this over and get it done and get out of there. I was pissed.
Yeah.
I was not happy. So
and you're dealing with cancer and like this whole thing. Like, we've been given like two of the worst pieces of news like someone could have.
That's right.
And also it sounds like you had like an incredible team from a practical perspective, and they got you healthy again, and obviously that's the main thing. But you didn't necessarily have that like emotional support or language to be like, how do I process all of these crazy emotions that are going on?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know. A lot like infertility, they don't know what to say.
Yeah, exactly. And you're dealing with two at the same time, and I guess the focus is on your health, right? So it's kind of like you said, stick a pin in that. Like, I'll deal with that later. But if no one's coming to you going, okay, cool, we dealt with the cancer, now should we talk about this, and how do you feel about that? I guess no one's doing that, right? They're just like, great, off on your way, and then you're kind of so you touched on it then. It sounds like you did, I guess, in a sort of healthy way, deal with it, which was be positive and put a lot of love out into the world. But what was going on internally? You said you were pissed. Like, what was going on for you?
It was quite. Again, I come back to this lucky thing. I think the diagnosis happened very quickly. So I kind of had this feeling. I finally ended up talking myself into going and see a doctor 4 months after I initially felt this pain. Guys, get out and get tested if you feel this pain. Anyway, I felt this pain and I couldn't shake it. I tried to jump in the water. I cool it down, ice it. I tried to stretch. I did all this stuff and it just got too much. So I rock up to the doctor, and basically my whole thing, it lasted like a week. All this pain, I didn't know what it was. I didn't want to know what it was because of my medical knowledge too. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
quacks like a duck, looks like a duck.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a duck. But
And burying
yeah,
your head in the sand is like, I think, a bit
yeah,
of a guy thing in general. You know, we talk about it a lot in fertility,
yeah,
but I guess,
yeah,
you know, health stuff as
yeah,
well. I think it's really common.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Most definitely. I definitely dug myself to China
Mm-hmm.
with the hole I was sitting in, and yeah. When I finally got to the doctor, and he actually said it was just inflammation. Epididymitis is what he calls it. And he goes, oh,
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Why don't you go for a scan? This was Tuesday. So Tuesday, I thought, I'll go to the ultrasound. So I go and see the ultrasound, and I have the ultrasound, and he goes, hey, John, do you want to wait for your doctor's appointment, or do you want me to just show you what I see? And he turned the screen around, and he goes, see this part here? This is all good. Like, there's good blood flow and good. And then he goes, see this part here? That's all tumor. And I'm like, excuse me?
Mm.
Excuse
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
So he went straight, he called the doc, and the next day I was in the doctor's, and he goes, well, this is a surprise. And I went, yeah. So then he put me on to the specialist, the urologist. So I go and see him. Then I have scans and that the next day. And I was very lucky here in Australia. We had private health, so I was still just hanging on to the barest minimum. And I was just I was on the table. He goes, Friday afternoon. He goes, John, what are you doing Monday? And he said, oh, we'll get that out. See again, no cancer. Didn't even mention it. We'll get that out. So Mum flew down, and yeah, we spent the next little while in hospital, and it was a hell of a lot sorer than I kind of was led to believe as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I bet. But like you said, it's good that you avoided the chemo, because that, like you said,
Yeah,
that's like a
yeah,
really long term and rough thing, and can have loads of different
yeah.
impacts on your
No,
health.
side effects. That's right. That's right. The chemo with the type, mine was a non-seminoma. So the seminoma and seminoma, they're actually different. The seminoma cells, they get 1 day of chemo. The
Right.
particular one that I have had the longer one, because there's multiple
Yeah.
types of cells. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting road.
So once you were sort of in that remission stage, like you said, you were a bit of a waiting game, but you were like, okay, like I'm healthy,
Yeah,
I'm gonna be all right, like,
yeah.
but I can't have kids is the message in your mind. But then I suppose, did that positivity come from the fact that, you know, you'd survived cancer? So were you kind of like, I don't want to get down in the dumps about the kid thing, because, you know, I don't know. Like, I wonder if did that, or you seem like a positive guy anyway, but I'm wondering
Yeah.
whether that gave you a sort of, oh, well, I won't allow myself to be upset about this, because I should just be really happy that I'm around.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there. A lot of those feelings around that time, it was me in the mindset that I wasn't allowing myself to go down that road. And if I
Yeah.
did, which I did end up in those dark places for a period of time. And I think we brought it to our infertility journey. It's just I didn't spend long there. I'm like, all
Mm.
right, what can I do next? And I took on a heap of different lifestyle changes, and I sort of dropped the hammer on them all. Like I did the blood type diet. I removed
Mm.
foods that were causing me discomfort, and exercise, all that sort of thing. I started to just do all these things, which has actually led me to where I'm at now, which is plant based. So I think that started me on a research journey, which I just was basically treated myself as a lab rat.
Yeah, that's
I would
really
just see
interesting.
something, I would just try it, and I'm like, oh, I'd do keto, and then I'd go, oh, keto is really tough for a long period of time, and you can really fall off the wagon, and then you try it. Yeah. So yeah, a
But
lab rat, definitely.
it reminds me, I can't remember the book now, but I was reading a book about pregnancy loss, and they were talking about how men and women grieve differently. And there's a term for it. I can't remember what it is, but, you know, it's women, you know, want to talk about it, they want to sit with their emotion. And obviously this is generalizations, it's not everybody.
Yeah.
But men, they were saying, you know, men, when, and this was talking about pregnancy loss grief, but that could be any grief, and infertility is a grief, I believe. They go practical. They're like, right,
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna
100%.
do this thing, like I'm gonna research this thing, and that's how they like channel those emotions.
Yeah.
Which I guess is like, again, it's healthy if, you know, that is a better coping mechanism than maybe going to a darker place where you're, you know, doing things that are unhealthy for you, but it's still not like dealing with the emotions that you're going
No,
through.
100%. It's not 100%. But who wants to deal with the emotions?
No, thank you. Yeah. Did that, when you met Laura, is that when did you have to kind of open that box up? Did you manage to keep that all kind of compartmentalized until you guys met and that conversation started to happen?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting question, because up until meeting Laura, I still hadn't opened that box up, because I was like, all right, this was my life, and I really have to make sure I let her know early on, because we've got to see where this goes, because it's literally like first dates type stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, us just talking about kids. She's from a big family. Like, Laura is maternal to the core. And I guess for me, it's like I did start to feel, I'm like, well, how can I provide that part to it? And then we start talking about kids, and do you want kids? And I said, I'd love kids, but can't have them. And basically, after that conversation, I just started digging around and finding out, and I went and found a GP, because I just hadn't needed one since my cancer, and he'd actually moved away, and I just basically hadn't seen a doc other than for all my reviews. And yeah, I just started looking and digging and looking, and then we started working on it together. And I guess age is an interesting thing too, because obviously I was a little older. Laura was a little older. We seemed to reach the decision at the same time, basically, because we're like, well, this feels pretty good. And well, yeah. And I always joke with Laura that you got to live by the decisions you make, because she's just signed herself up to a whole heap of pain. But anyway, I would like to think I had some value at some place somewhere.
No. And you know, I mean, I was listening the other day to your Baby or Bust interview, and you know, the way that you spoke about it, and when Laura got emotional and saying, you know, the fertility journey is like, there is a romance to it, because it's like she chose you, you know, and it was like, okay, I love you so much that even though this is not how we thought this was going to be, like, I'm in it with you. And I think that's really incredible, you know, and it really touched me. I thought it was really special. But I guess that's the thing of, I don't know, we're really interested to know your take on this. Did you feel like you were driving that, or do you think that meeting Laura gave you the push to drive that? Because I feel like in many couples, you kind of see this of, and it's a bit of a stereotype, but I think it's what we need to talk about today, which is, it's often the woman is driving it, and then the woman gets the focus from the doctors, and the woman gets the support, and the guy can sometimes just feel like a passive kind of sidekick in this journey. And I think what you and Laura, you know, kind of publicly have done is so clearly like a real team effort. Was it like that from the start, or were there times when you did feel like a bit of a spare part?
Oh, I kind of feel obviously I felt like a spare part a lot of the time, but I like to think when we first got together, there was this connection that we're like, right, we can do this together, and I felt driven to actually investigate, and how that looked. I literally had no idea, and Laura didn't know I was doing it. I looked around my local area for a GP and did some sperm analysis. So I was just doing it in the background, and then she sort of found out. Then she found out, and we're like, oh well, let's we'd only been together a few months, and she came along to my fine needle.
I heard that on the podcast. That was one of your dates.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it was funny. We both we both just dove in head first, I believe.
Yeah.
We kind of, well, we just rolled with it, really.
Yeah. But it
I
sounds like
guess
you
we
were
say
quite
we had a
proactive.
plan, but there felt like there was no plan at all.
Yeah.
We were just doing what seemed to be right at that time, and take the next step. And yeah.
But it seems like you were really proactive, which I think,
Yes. Yes. I feel I was like,
yeah, it
I
sounds
didn't
like
feel
you
like I
were,
was
which,
hiding anything.
yeah, which is interesting because I think, you know, with Exseed, you know, when we're talking about early testing, and you know, a massive core value of the business is to encourage guys to get proactive and not put their head in the sand, and to
Yes.
take charge of their fertility.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
still feel like that's something that men find quite difficult, you know. Do you think, I wonder, maybe it's because you're a bit older and maybe it's just a personality thing, but do you think that would you encourage men to be a bit more proactive about getting to know their fertility? And
100%. I have this conversation quite a bit with well, I speak to everyone. I just speak to randoms all over the place, men and women. And anyway, you end up talking about either partners and men as well. And you sort of you pose the question. You go, oh well, because they're going, oh, I want to start. And you go, well, have you been checked? And he goes, oh well, no, I'll be right. 3 or 4 years will be fine. And you go, I just want to tell you, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And that's what so many people think. And then I come back to a woman's fertility as well. So if the guy's testing is actually the easiest part of the whole
totally
thing. And if you were able to tick that off instead of waiting the couple of years, then you're like, oh well, yeah. I'm very pro getting in front of the storm, getting in front of the beast that's chasing you, and just any little step, go and see your doctor, have a blood test. Oh, that's low. Well, then start fixing that. Great. All right. What's the next one? Oh, your semen analysis is low. Oh, let's
check it
find
out.
a doctor that works with that.
Yeah.
Oh, who did Infertility Man? Where? Oh, I've heard about this Exseed mob.
Yeah.
They might know some people. Yeah. But yeah, proactive is.
And I guess I guess without the cancer, like you wouldn't have necessarily, you could have just been like going through life, like having no idea.
No.
And then I guess that proactivity that you could bring to your relationship with Laura, and, you know, was because you had that information. Now, if you didn't get it in the best way, like no one, you know, we don't want anyone to have to get testicular cancer to know what's going on with their sperm, obviously. But I guess because you had that information, you could be proactive, because I think a lot of couples, they start trying, and then a year later, maybe they're like, oh, like this isn't working. And then, then so often the first test is, oh, let's test the female partner if there's a female partner in the relationship.
That's right.
So the sperm test can come like 18 months, even years.
100%. Yep. If at all.
Exactly. So I guess, really interesting that because you had that information, you could be proactive. I guess that's what, and I guess it allowed you to center yourself a little bit in that fertility conversation, because you were kind of coming with like, hi, like, it's me, like, I know, like kind of thing. Which I think a lot of men don't have that.
Yeah. We kind of reframed the fear aspect too. I just saw a message there.
Yeah, I agree.
We kind of reframed the fear aspect to not so to a challenge, to something to be overcome, not scared of. It's like, right, this is all possible, because I know that there's more than me out there. There's more couples like me and Laura out there that have had a similar experience, and there's loads that are having their own experience. But the biggest we did was we reframed that. Oh, your whatever level is low, and we go, right, how can we improve that or make that better?
Yeah.
And these are the questions we asked ourselves, even when we were at the lowest of the low. We go, right, all right, how can we get through this weekend together?
Yeah.
How can we get through the 14th egg retrieval together?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if you are doing this with the support of others or on your own, and you've decided to do that, man, bounce off people, use people, really sound your worries, your fears, and it is a challenge. Like, to be scared or excited, they're basically the same feeling. It's the meaning we've attached to it. So get excited about your cancer. No, I didn't. That was just an example. That was just an example.
Well, I think it's like, see it as it's like something to overcome, like you said, rather than something that knocks you back. It's like, okay, this is it's a hurdle, not a door being slammed. Like it's like, okay, what can we do? And again, I think totally. And I think with that, to have that attitude, you need to be empowered by knowledge, you know, about your health and about the situation. And you also need to have a, you know, if you're in this in a partnership, you know, that's really important that you're both on the same page, and you've kind of said, okay, we're gonna, which is really evident that you and Laura did. You've just talked about fear there. What are the other kind of emotions, I guess specifically as the guy in that situation, did you go through? Because, and again, I know you've told the story. So you ended up, you did find some sperm. When you did micro-teasing.
We found one in the fine needle aspiration. And it wasn't even swimming. It wasn't even doing anything. So, but for Laura and I, that was a positive, because
sometimes all you need.
Because I didn't think we had any. So that sort of kept us definitely pushing forward. And then we happened to. It's one thing. There's a lot of smart people out there say that it's not who you hire, it's who you fire. And if we had stayed with our first doctor, we would have not got the outcome we ended up with. We have.
So what happened with the second doctor?
It was so important that we left that doctor. If we had gone down that road, I would not be having.
Do you know what? That's really similar to a guy we spoke to last week, Gareth Landy, who has Klinefelter syndrome, and he ended up becoming a father through donor sperm. But the difference between some of the doctors he went to in the early days, who just said it doesn't work, and then he found this specialist who did so much and was so supportive and amazing. And I think you're right. Like, finding the right healthcare team is important, and having the autonomy to do that and say no, like, I'm going somewhere else. Because I think we sometimes get intimidated by doctors and are like, well, they say this, so like, fine. And actually, you can challenge that. So what happened when you moved doctors?
Well, we moved again. We found Laura's one for research. She's a bit of a birth nerd. She's a bit of an IVF nerd. She just loves this stuff, and which has helped me to no end. But we ended up coming across Dr. Lynn was starting out on her own. And Laura just said, I've heard about her, and so we ended up getting in touch, and we went on a cancellation list, and then we just got some random appointment, and then we just started down the road, because she worked with my particular specialist, and he's like first and foremost with the micro-tease procedure, and geez. The rest is history, man. But we were in it for a while.
Yeah, and I know that the IVF, it wasn't just we found some sperm, now let's like make baby. It's like it wasn't. I know it wasn't like that. It was long, really physically intense, but emotionally intense for both of you. Very physically intense for Laura. I know that was not easy. So as the guy going through that journey, what were you kind of going through, emotionally?
Well, I think for me, and I still have issues with it too, because you sort of still want to knock guilt on the head all the time, because you have this guilt about what has put us where we are and how that eventuated, and then you've got this worry about how this is going to affect your relationship moving forward. Both of them remove your ability to actually be in the bloody moment when you need to be there with your partner. So, it's you constantly. I believe you're constantly going to be checking in with those, and I kind of use them to drive me forward. And again, it comes back to how can I use these emotions for good rather than evil.
Yeah, and I guess, how did you do that? I mean, I feel like, again, you've got an incredible relationship. I think you've got a very strong mindset anyway. But is that when you started thinking, hey, I could do with some support here, and there doesn't seem to be much for guys? Like, is that kind of what was missing from that support network for you, as men that understood what you were going through?
Well, that's exactly right, because you go talking to anyone, your friends, your family, and you mention it, they go, what do we say now? So yes, it's about those people you want to hang around with, and you can just share those stories and actually and have some understanding when they look you in the face and go, I know what you're feeling. Not you should just go and have a holiday. You'll get pregnant. You know?
Exactly.
I just want to explode. But yes, that's where we sort of found that there wasn't much out there from the male perspective, and I think that there are a couple of resources, but I think when you're coming to your relationship as well, that's the most important thing. So why are you doing this? It's because you want to create something together. If you come through it, it's tough, but if you come out the other end and you haven't looked after your vessel or your home, then
totally. And I think that's a really, really, really good point, because it's so, I think fertility can become all consuming. I mean, it does become all consuming, right? But then, like, if you go through all of this to get to your future, but you haven't kind of looked after the present, then when it's sort of the dust settles and you look at each other, you need to be like, wow, our relationship's in a good, you know, that was really hard, but we love each other so much, and we're really proud of how we dealt with that together, rather than being resentful or being distant and not being as bonded, because, you know, you're trying to be parents at the end of the day, and you want to have a health. That's the basis of being of having a healthy relationship. Did you kind of, I mean, again, I feel like whenever I go to ask a question, I'm like, just sounds like you and Laura are just made for each other and are an amazing team. So I think that's wonderful. But
we still had blues, I can tell you. We still had blues, definitely. But
we don't want to make people feel bad that you have the perfect.
But we were able to. Again, we just didn't spend long there. And then I think we both they would never be. But the thing is, it was a disagreement. Then we'd go away, and then either one of us or both of us would come out and go, "It was a bit silly, really." Why did I? And then I'd explain why I felt like I felt, and I'm like, well, I actually took it quite personally that you said it that way. And she goes, what? I didn't even mean for it to sound like that. I was literally just saying blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, that's how I sort of felt. And she goes, well, I didn't mean that. And I said, well, I'm very sorry. And then she'll say, well, I thought you said. And so we both attached this meaning or assumed this. We wanted something or had this intention, and it was just completely wrong.
Have you always been that emotionally open and kind of comfortable? Okay.
No.
Because I was going to say, I think that what you're describing sounds, you know, is that's really healthy. But I'm like, I think a lot of guys even struggle with that, to kind of find the words and label those, like, well, actually, you know, deep down, I feel really guilty that you're going through this. So when you said, oh, you know, this throwaway comment, that actually made me feel really guilty, you know, and that's quite like emotionally complex for some people to do. So how did you get to that point if it's not you naturally?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest ones was about not taking anything personally, because it's never personal, because people are coming from their own model of the world, and that personal, just that lesson alone, I've gone, oh wow, all right. If that wasn't personal, then what did she need from that, or what did that person need from that? So I think from my point of view, I left my ego at the door. Every time you walk in, I would like to think we had a box there, and I'd just sit it in the box, walk into the thing, and then I'd end up doing my best. It wasn't fail proof. It was. I would definitely be trying my best, but I think that has been a big one. The ego is an important part, and if you don't need that reassurance or that external positivity, then and you've got it internally and you can generate it, then you can actually bring the positive to the conversations.
Yeah.
And I think the outcome is just infinitely better.
Yeah, 100%. Did sharing your story publicly, it definitely, we've had some comments here of people just saying how much you've helped them, and that's really evident. But do you think it also helped you with that kind of process of understanding your emotions and being able to communicate them? Just that sort of having a community and sharing stories with guys.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. The men's group, the men's infertility group we've got on Facebook. Geez, it's like pulling teeth trying to get these boys to talk. But then someone will actually get in there and they literally bare their soul.
Yeah.
And it is actually really beautiful to just watch these guys just open up, just in support and love and caring and confidence and courage and they're just wanting to help. And I think it's really interesting for guys to look for that supportive group.
Yeah.
And it's really helped me in the fact that you're saying this emotional intelligence. It's just, I find myself when I'm hearing someone speak to me about their story, then I go, oh man, I haven't experienced that, but I'm like, I've had something like this happen, and we'd end up having a chat about, or you'd end up going, oh yeah, well I've sort of been down this road, but it was a little different. And then once you've connected, you're off on a different tangent, and you can feel the release. It's just like a pressure cooker, just letting off that little bit of steam every minute or so. I believe it needs to be. I believe we're infinitely hard on ourselves, and that's men and women alike. Our expectations do not meet reality. Our bars are set so bloody high. It actually it's not reasonable to think you can achieve them at all, or achieve what you're expecting to happen. So we continually set the bar, and I don't mean set it so low that you can't, but I mean we set ourselves up to, I guess, win or set ourselves up for a better outcome, because we set the bar. Oh well, we set that appointment. Great, well done. Oh, let's go. And then we did the blood test. We did the cycle. We didn't get any eggs. Oh well, we met the doctor. We had to move to another doctor. So it is a continually moving landscape.
Yeah.
And you have to be, I wouldn't say quick on your feet, but I believe if you can just keep taking that step forward, or when you do get knocked down, just make sure that you get knocked down front-ways, because you're going to bounce back up, and then you're going to go on your way again.
Yeah, totally. And having that safe space to have those conversations, and to because I think that's the thing. I think when anyone starts trying to have kids and it becomes evident that it's not going to go the sort of way that we've all been told, like this is, you're going to decide you want to have a baby and the next day you're going to get pregnant, which is this myth that we're told from school, which is like, every time you have sex you're going to make a baby. Don't do it. I know. And so when you're like an adult and suddenly I feel like, I feel quite, because I work in the space, I feel like I have a bit of like a view on it, but for most people, it's like you suddenly open this Pandora's box of like, oh my God, like there's this whole world of infertility that unless you're in it, you don't really know about. And then it's like this massive shock. So to have a safe space for men to go and have guys that are like, welcome to the club, like let's we can hold your hand through this, because I think, and I don't know whether you experience this, but I think there's also, there's a societal pressure to just have kids and do it this way, whatever. And then for men, I think you're often told, oh, well, you got to be the strong one. Like, you got to man up. Like, all of these really damaging things. And I think that I feel like the community that you created and the men that share stories are helping to kind of unpick that a little bit of like, you don't have to be the strong one all the time. Like, you don't have to be okay. Like, it is, and like you said, when you see these guys open up, that must be really powerful.
It is, and then you might get a message in the background, just a personal DM, and you just, oh, that's and for us, it was like we shared for our journey to help not only ourselves but others, and we thought, well, we'd get to the end of the road, and however it will be, and it's kind of become a bit of a mission now, where we're like, right, we've just got to keep pushing this vehicle ahead, and like yourselves, just keep jumping on. We just get some more to jump on, and we push on a little further, and we've just got to remove this stigma, make it okay to talk about this, and allow guys to actually feel their way through this, because the old days of just bashing, crashing through something, it's just not there anymore. We've got a world with heaps of contaminants, and there's heaps of challenges, and there's all these other things going on, and there's shift work, all this sort of stuff, and we need support. And it's really important that we make it okay to ask for it.
Yeah, and to have those conversations, and like you said, just make it. I think it's really important that we have the support there for people that have, you know, discovered that they are going to have struggles. But I think also just making it a not taboo topic that we can talk about, like, proactively as well. You know, I think that, you know, for guys that even before they're trying to have kids, like, oh, like, I know that there's a chance it could be this, and maybe I'll get my sperm tested, or, you know, I don't know. I think, like, I feel it's really important to open up those worlds between fertility and infertility, rather than kind of, do you know what I mean? Like, keep them separate. I mean, I know that I know, like us, you know, one of your big missions, and something you've been talking about quite a lot, ahead of the launch of your book, which I know we'll talk about in a moment, but is really centering around this conversation. What do you think, you know, are the things that we need to do societally or practically to center men in the conversation more?
I think awareness is one of the biggest factors when it comes to infertility, and with respect to men, it's how we actually broach the subject, how we actually, when we meet new people as well, our actual awareness about their lifestyle. Everyone's got their own different lives, and we don't know what people are experiencing. So sometimes there's throwaway comments, sometimes the thing, but these sorts of things, if we're actually aware of the environment we're creating around ourselves, and it's very inclusive, whether you're infertile or you're not, it would actually allow for some open and honest conversation between both men and women, and between men alike and women alike.
Totally.
It's something we experienced it, you would have experienced it. It's just people just don't know. So it's about getting this message out there. This is what has to happen for us to have a family because of X, Y, and Z, and get the explanations out on this movement. And it is a movement that's happening. It's because of the world we've created that we're ending up with this infertility rate, which is, it's growing. I hate to say. It's growing.
Exactly. And it's so common. And I think that's the thing is, again, this, when you first get that news, like the shame and the kind of isolation that can come. And then when you actually find out it's 1 in 7 couples will be, you know, on average, will be going through something like this. And it's like, you're not alone. Like, you're not kind of, there's nothing wrong with you. There's just, this is a situation that's impacting loads of people. And do you think, I mean, I kind of touched, I mean, my biggest bugbear is education. Like, I think that, you know, we need to be having these conversations earlier, you know, in schools. So, you know, like, I think our education system needs to include all of this kind of thing. And I think also the medical profession need to also stop and think about how, you know, that when they're talking with couples, you know, centering the woman, like, of course, you know, if someone like Laura went through all of that stuff, like, of course they need lots of care and attention, but the guys need it too, you know. I think it's
if I go back to all the things that actually could possibly have contributed to my case, basically.
Mm.
Like if I go back as a baby, undescended testicle, and which ended up being the one that turned into a tumor. So then I have a look at through my life. Well, I was a big kid. Oh, I would say fat, but anyway, I was a big kid. Going to my teens, I developed gynecomastia. So knowing what I know now,
Wow.
so
Okay.
developing the tissue around the chest area. So knowing what I know now, and then you end up with cancer, like another 20 years later type thing. So knowing what I know now about hormones and stuff like that, my testosterone was in my boot. So if I'm thinking about my testosterone, which is turning to estrogen, and I was a big fat, I wouldn't say I was big and fat. I was just big. And then my ability to lay down fat was great because my estrogen would have been off the charts, but no one was looking at my hormones. So I kind of wonder whether if we had found that, a doctor had gone, hey, you know what, maybe we should have a look at bloods, or maybe we should have a look. So I think the earlier the better. And like I said, talking about this sort of stuff in schools, even if it's just a portion of that education class, just to raise the spidey senses to go, you know what, this is a thing. And
these are things that impact your fertility. These are ways that you can have a family that aren't through natural conception. You know, just even like that, just so it kind of triggers and right. I mean, you're a parent now, so do you feel that, you know, when you're bringing your little one up, do you think that this will be a conversation that you're trying to have in your household, you know, in an age-appropriate kind of way?
I do believe it's very, very important. It's going to be a very important conversation. Well, just to find out where they came from, and how they were made, and or how she was made, and it's again starting her off early in the piece, and just her awareness of her body as she's developing, as she's growing into this world. We can recognize these little shots over the bow that we go, oh, maybe it might be this, or we can actually have a look a little further in. So
and I mean, and she's going to know because you've got your book coming out, which I want to talk about before we go. So, you know, that's going to be on the bookshelf. So she's going to know her story.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean, tell me, you know, I know the book's coming out quite soon, and you can see visually, it's got those incredible illustrations that you've got from your illustrator, which, you know, has taken the heart and the humor of your fertility journey and put it into a book, which is wonderful. So what's your kind of hope with the book? What was the driver to put it in that format rather than just take it off social media?
I think we wanted to approach it from a comic book perspective. We wanted to make it easier for a guy to pick up a book that is on a bloody heavy subject. And it's not just about the infertility. It's about the relationship. If it's not about the relationship, it's about friends and you supporting. It's about your awareness. So I think we've really busted our backsides to try and make it all inclusive and just like a one-stop shop. And we've sent it off, and we're really excited to see how it's going to look, because this is a new process for us. So they're doing the typesetting, which is how they set up the pages and stuff. And we're at the moment just like populating infertilityman.com and setting up a pre-sale. Like there's going to be a discount thing that if you wanted to put your email and stuff on infertilityman.com, your details, then we'll be back straight in touch when the books are ready to go. And God, we just want to get this word out to so many people. And we're, like you said, we've put our heart and soul into this book, and I believe we've kind of captured the expert's vision and right down to the grassroots. And we believe it's definitely going to add value to anyone's journey. So
I can't wait to read it, and I think it's just really exciting to have a book that's for men, you know, well, for couples, but, you know, for anyone, but has got
Yeah,
this
yeah,
male lens on it, which I think
yeah.
is something that's really, you know, there's so many amazing books that are
Hmm.
kind of slanted
Yeah,
towards women, and then men might get a chapter in it, you know, and I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's really
yeah.
exciting to have a book that's kind of first and foremost for sort of by a guy for guys, which I think is incredible.
Yeah,
I'm really excited.
yeah.
I know we'll be, you know, we'll be supporting you as that comes out. We'll make sure we
Oh,
put
thank you.
links and sign up and this, that, and the other. When do you have any idea when you kind of just collecting like the wait list now, and then once you know, have a date, you'll get in touch with people?
I would imagine you can actually go to the website now, infertilityman.com, and you can put your email address and whatever details Laura set up. She's so good at that stuff.
Yeah, she's.
And
You can see she's
and
such a
she'll
good
collect that
team.
information, and then we'll end up getting in touch early on when the book's ready. And look, we envisage maybe a month or two,
Wow. Okay, not
like
long. So through the summer.
in that time. No, man, we are like sweating bullets. We're like, wow, this is happening.
I know, book and a baby within 12 months, like you guys are just crazy. But you know, we're very grateful. We're very grateful that you're so
Yeah,
passionate
thank
about it. So thanks so much, Jon.
you.
I've absolutely loved chatting to you. I know I've kept you a lot longer than I said I would. So thank you so much for sticking around, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And we'll be shouting out all about the book as and when it's ready.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Laura didn't tell me how long I had to be here, so I just stayed. So that's great, and I've enjoyed the
I
chat.
think
Thank you
originally I
very
said
much.
half an hour, but I'm a chatter, and like you're great. So I'm really grateful for this extra time, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
Laura, for arranging.
Yes, yes.
All right, Jon. Speak
Thank
to you
you.
soon. Have a great evening.
See you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.